Power, and in doing so, our mission and our ambitions are always aligned, and we strive for creating holistic wealth. There needs to be two things that every leader in different sectors should have. The first thing is representation. So a leader should represent your values, your principles, and your goals, and it should be an aspirational thing to think about your leader. And the second thing that every leader should have is administration capabilities. This means to be able to solve problems, to determine which issues are urgent and which issues are very important, to be able to learn on the spot, and to be able to work as a team and be disruptive without being destructive.
Please join our next seminar from our series, Catalyst of Change, Tuesday, July 18th.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Catalyst of Change Women Leaders in Science Seminar Series. We will be hearing today from a very distinguished leader in sustainable business, Altagracia Gómez Sierra, Chair of the Western Business Promoter Council and Chair of the Board of Directors at Grupo Minsa. There is interpretation available in Spanish, French, and Hindi. To access interpretation, you choose the language of your preference by clicking the translation button at the base of your Zoom screen. This seminar is live streamed and available at CIMIT webcast, and it is also live streamed in Spanish in the AC CIMIT YouTube channel. We invite you to follow us in LinkedIn, YouTube, and social media using the hashtag Women in Science. On the screen, you will see the QR code that will give you access to Slido for submitting questions and comments to be addressed by the speaker at the end of her presentation. Also, for the Q&A session, you can write your question in the chat box or raise your hand for any further questions. At the end of the conference, our special speaker will have an interesting conversation with Eva Itria Eva, a wheat scientist leading the Wheat Chemistry and Quality Laboratory at CIMIT and member of Women in Science. Now, I would like to welcome Brian Gómez, Director General of CIMIT, to officially open the event and welcome distinguished invitee, Altagracia Gómez Sierra. Dr. Gómez, the floor is yours.
Good day, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this second webinar of our Catalysts of Change Women Leaders in Science series. Welcome especially to all of you connected online and in this Zoom, only on LinkedIn and on the YouTube channels. We are over 150 participants. This is our second TED Talk meets Fireside Chat style series on women leaders because we want more women leaders in science organizations and institutions like our own. To achieve this goal, we need broader representation, and we need role models that balance science, business, insights, decision-making, to provide opportunities to hear from women leaders about their life journeys, lessons, and insights. Because as a smart person once said, you can't be what you can't see. We highlight, therefore, here leaders in all sorts of capacities, fields, and disciplines, because we believe that leadership styles can take many different forms. Today, it is my honor and my pleasure to feature and welcome a top speaker. Altagracia Gómez Sierra is one of the most influential women in agribusiness and energy in the region. Altagracia is the chair of Grupo Empresarial PEO, Promotora Empresarial Occidental, and chair of the board of directors of Grupo Minsa. She obtained a law degree with honorable mentions from the Escuela Libre de Derecho in Mexico. Altagracia also completed various academic programs at the Royal Academy of Oxford, where she studied British law. She recently completed several training programs on finance and negotiations at Harvard Business School. Previously the CEO of Grupo Empresarial G, she today continues to serve as Secretary of the Board of Directors, Deputy General Manager of Almer, and lead of the conglomerate's energy division. She has dedicated her career to manage investment projects in new sectors that catalyze sustainable development. She is also a TV host, because Prospecciones, that she leads together with the Secretary of Economic Development of the state of Jalisco, features various distinguished guests, and she discusses with those guests every week topics of economic interest for the general public. Altagracia, thank you very much for honoring us with your presence here today. And thank you to everybody who's joining us once again online. Altagracia, thanks for your outstanding leadership, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm very glad, I'm very honored to be here. Thank you so much to CIMMYT, to Bran, and to all the team in CIMMYT that makes this possible. So you're gonna have to bear with me with two things. I have a terrible cold since 2 or 3 days ago, so maybe my voice isn't as clear as it should be. I'm gonna try to speak slow for the interpreters. If I'm failing at any of the two, if I'm not very clear, or if I'm going too fast, please let me know at any time. So yeah, I chair a conglomerate that specializes on basic basket goods in Mexico. Basic basket goods are goods that determine inflation in accordance to the Bank of Mexico and the government. And so basically, we are lucky enough to participate in very strategic businesses that not only have economic or financial relevance in the region, not only Mexico, but that are also very politically and socially and even culturally relevant. So first and foremost is MINSA, that is our strongest link to CIMMYT. MINSA is the second largest corn masa producer for tortillas. And as you guys know, tortillas is one of the staple foods or ingredients in the Mexican diet. So 58% of calories of the poorest or most vulnerable people in Mexico come from the ingestion of tortillas. So it is a very, very important product. It has been so not only for Mexicans, but all of this Mesoamerican civilization, even culturally, and we're very honored to have that company for now over 30 years, but it's a company that was founded by the government over 70 years ago. We also are involved in public transportation, where we were in 2006, it's the only Mexican brand of urban and suburban buses in the region. And our competitors are huge competitors, and they're from Germany, and some are from the US, now from China. And we were tired of Mexico being a technological drainage for these companies, where they bring to Mexico products that they can no longer commercialize and produce in Europe or in the States because the motors are not up to standard, they pollute more, etc. And so what we did there was we created the first bus to enter Mexico with natural gas that pollutes 90% less. And we have 86% of the market in natural gas buses in Mexico now. We are now turning to electrical buses in conjunction with some universities in Mexico, Politecnico, and governments in Mexico. We have some initiatives with the government of California, where we did the first electrical trucks, heavy-duty trucks for Long Beach Port, which is also proudly ours in DINA. And we're in a lot of other different sectors. We have the largest bonded warehouse in Mexico. We have automotive plants of thermoform plastic. We have 3 of those. And we're one of the biggest real estate developers in Mexico. And I think that as a woman, we've seen different challenges and lots of opportunities. First and foremost, the sectors in which we participate in are not only dominated by men, but they're dominated by older men. So sectors such as agribusiness, public transportation, automotive industry, finance, real estate, they're predominantly for older men. And these are, if you look at the statistics, these are not sectors in which unicorns or startups or young people are participating in. And these are, of course, not sectors in which women are thriving. In Mexico, rural areas, it's less than 11% women. In finance areas, it's about 12%. In real estate is about 20%. That's the highest one. Public transportation is not even 8%. And so I think that it's been both a blessing and a curse. No, and I think what we bring to the table as women that have a great education, no, and as women that had great opportunities to be in the best schools with the best people, I think that when I got there, and I did get there, you know, even though it's a family business, I have an older brother. I have 23 cousins, most of them guys, and most of them older than me. And how I got to chairing the company, I think, was with 2 or 3 key things. You know, first of all, I think that we understood the mission and the ambitions of the company were far more than an economic gain. And I think that is very important in all companies that are looking to create legacy. Whether it's a family business where legacy parts from core family values, or whether they're public corporations or transnational corporations, it is very, very important to determine values, to determine principles, to determine goals very early on, and to align those two, where your financial and economic ambitions have to align necessarily with your social and even cultural impact you want to have, of course, in your company, but also with people that collaborate with you and your community. So that is one differentiator that I think that the women that are now getting to positions of power should definitely take into consideration. The second thing is the ability to solve problems. I think as a company or any organization, we need to think about what is our added value, you know, in products, in services, and in our contributions to society. No, so we always say when we come to a company or when we enter a project, we like to think not only what can we gain from that, but what can we contribute to that. And in doing so, I think that the ability to solve problems in an urgent manner, in an efficient manner, but also in a manner in which you're thinking about the big picture while solving, you know, the small details that are needed to move forward. I think that is an added value that is recognized in every organization. So the third thing I would say is, I think women have an advantage here. We are usually trained to have more soft skills. And when you look at the World Economic Forums, the skills that are going to need, that are sought more in companies and in leadership positions are not so much hard skills, but soft skills. And in this sense, I think women they're trained as small girls even to be very effective communicators. And they are trained to be part of larger teams or part of larger communities, to have a community sense and to advance forward, no, and to not leave people behind. So I think that's an attribute that women in you as women in science can absolutely bring to the table and communicate. And that is something that I believe that whether it's in the short term or the long term, it eventually gets recognized all the time. And the other thing, and I always say it, and I think I said it even in the video sent last week, is in these times where there's crisis everywhere we look. You know, first the pandemic, and then supply chains were broken, and then the war in Ukraine and Russia, and there's inflation, and there's a challenge to two of the most important structures built globally. You know, first of all, the way in which we viewed globalization. That beginning on the pandemic, we said, hey, maybe that way failed us. And now we're trying to move it regionalized with nearshoring or friendshoring or whatnot. And the second thing is capitalism. Leaders of the capitalist system that was unchallenged for 30 years at least, we thought that leaders failed us, no? Political leaders, when we saw, presidents such as Trump or Bolsonaro in Brazil or in the UK or what happens in Latin America. But we also saw it in businessmen that we held with very high regard. No, there were very serious accusations with Jeffrey Epstein and very, very important businessmen and whatnot. And we saw it even with labor union leaders. So as leadership has failed us, no, and as we enter a time of absolute change in the decade of 20s, I think women have their best shot to stop the reproduction of poverty and enter leadership positions that were previously denied. And in doing so, I think that what we should always bear in mind is we should learn to be disruptive without being destructive. No, and we should learn to build on what we already have and keep pushing it forward. And what I mean by that is there is an absolute impulse, no, for unicorns, for technology, for innovation. And what we sometimes fail to realize is that true innovation is coming from the small businesses that constitute up to 76% of new jobs in the world, really. And 90% of companies still are family companies or family businesses. So when we think about changing companies, we need to think about changing families and how families work. Because if we truly need to want to give a shot to women, we need to give a shot to girls. And so I would invite every one of you, if you have girls at home, absolutely encourage them not only to be prepared to take leadership roles, but to aspire to take leadership roles. You can do so by being represented, by fulfilling the shoes of representation, that you do so well in each of your specific areas. And you can do so also by setting an example in how to thrive. And I believe that decade of the 20s, in spite of all the challenges, it's truly a wonderful opportunity for girls and for women across the world, especially in science. So right now, the largest transition of wealth is happening between baby boomers and millennials. And millennials are the first generation of girls and of women that grew up with full rights, not only civil and political rights, but also economic, social, and cultural rights. And these girls are not only prepared, but have a different mindset. And a different mindset, I always say that attitude gets you further than aptitude. And I think that the change in mindset, accompanied by education and preparation, is really truly going to change the world for girls and for women, and it's going to change the world for business, where we will continue to seek financial gain in this new form of capitalism, but we won't forget our communities and everybody that's been left behind so much. And I think I have 2 minutes more, and so I would finish by saying this decade, there's three big opportunities for women. First is to consolidate everything you already have. In crisis situations, it is easy to take up on jobs that are not being fulfilled, and to solve problems that are not being fulfilled, to learn skills that need to be learned. The other thing is to specialize. Specialization skills and capabilities are going to be truly valued in the next 5 to 10 years. And the third thing is inclusion. Anything you can do for inclusion, whether it's gender roles, race, or even infrastructure, getting technology to people that don't have it getting education to people that don't have it, getting infrastructure for people that don't have access to it, to rural communities, etc. That is going to be very, very valued in the next 2 to 5 years. And I think that's the best way to move forward in the world, in your business, and in your specific career, so you can advance them with obviously profitability, economic profitability, but also social profitability. And I will leave it at that because I think I'm at the 20-minute mark.
All right. Altagracia, thank you so much for this presentation, for sharing your thoughts. And before going to the questions that I have for you, I would like to present briefly myself. My name is Maria Triaiba, and I'm a woman in crop science who has been working here at CIMMYT for 4 years. And I'm really excited to be able to interview you because you are a real example of a woman in a leadership position, and especially because you're in Mexico, which is a country which is still male-dominated, as you also said. After hearing your presentation, and also during the short video before your presentation, you mentioned that women should try to be disruptive without being destructive. Can you give us, first of all, how can you, let's say, harmonize and be able to do both? And can you give us an example of some actions that was disruptive but not destructive that you were able to achieve and that led you to a big change?
Sure. So what I mean by that, and I think I'll exemplify that, is every time a person that gets into power wants to start with a blank page, no, it has various costs to society. No, because before you see the benefits in any project, you see the losses. No, the only thing that is certain when you start a project is what you're willing to lose, not what you're gaining. No, what you're gaining is kind of always contingent of many different internal and external factors. So factoring that in, when you scratch something that's already there, sometimes it can cause the loss, but not the gain, not necessarily the gain. And that's why it's very important not to scratch other people's work, no, but to take it and to correct it if it's necessary, to change it if it's necessary, or to add something if it's necessary, to complement it, no. And for example, no, Minsa, as I said, is a company that was founded in 1950s by the government of Mexico, with the goal that they're to eliminate hunger in Mexico. No, so it produced a very cheap tortilla, basically. No, that obviously it takes less liters of water to create a kilo of tortillas, and it has many good things. No, it is added with folic acid and with other nutrients that women and children need to grow up and what. But the plants are now in the cities because what was once rural areas got caught up in urban and suburban areas. Mm-hmm. No, so when you're doing the transformation of corn into corn masa, there's a subproduct that's called nehayote. Mm-hmm. And that subproduct doesn't comply with any of the actual environmental norms here in Mexico. No, not for discharge of waters because it has a lot of solid particles, not for many different things. No, so you have 2 or 3 options to do that. No, so you have the water treatment plants that don't fully solve the problem. No, but you at least comply with the norm. No, it's not that you're doing it right. It's just
that you can't be punished for it. No, it doesn't take the smell away. It doesn't take, and it's not adding any value. No, it's just an additional cost that you need to transfer to the last consumer. And what we decided to do was a project called MINCAP. The laboratory is called MINCAP in Guadalajara. That was one of the plants that is in the second largest city in Mexico. And what we decided to do is a different process of transformation and distillment of the subproduct of nejayote, which we later turned into ferulic acid. And as you know, ferulic acid is then, you can sell it, and it is one of the main ingredients of vainillina, the taste of vanilla. No, when you taste a vanilla ice cream or whatnot, it's usually not vanilla, it's vanillina. And it can also be used for beauty products, ferulic acid. And so that's an example from where we turned something that was not only a it was a harmful subproduct. No? And we turned it into a business because we sell it to France. You know, and most of our production of ferulic acid we sell to France. We comply with the norm, but we also solve the real problem. No, for all of our neighbors. That when the plant was done, it wasn't a problem because there were no neighbors. No, so it's not that it's harmful to your health, but it was very it was not pleasant to be there. No, it smells bad and it's hot because it just came from a process of extreme heat and whatnot. And so I think that is an example of things you could do. Another way to help create value without destroying is to create alliances. No, and it is one of the goals of 2030 agenda of the UN. No, it says you need to do alliances with people that think like you, but also with people that don't think like you. So you need to extend the hand to government, to small communities, and you need to solve problems. No, and so we chaired for a bit VIDA, which was a new vision for agriculture, and that was a project that we presented in the World Economic Forum some years ago. No, and what we did was we convened between 3 different parties that had various interests. No, for the small producers, we said large companies such as us, but also as Nestlé, as Maseca, as Bimbo, and whatnot. We will ensure that we buy all of the ingredients you produce. We will give you preparation and technology kits, so it's up to our standard, no, and teach you how to make the standards we require. To the government, we said we need infrastructure, we need roads, we need, the whole macroeconomic environment needs to be better for these communities to thrive. And to the small producers, we said, okay, we need you to comply. If you say you're gonna give us this, you need to give us this. No, you can't turn around and sell it to another buyer or whatnot. And that created, 40% more income for about, for thousands and thousands of families in Mexico. And not only created 4% more income or more margins or more utility, it lowered their cost by more than 60%. So that's a different way to do something that is adding value without destroying previously made things.
Mm-hmm. No, those are great examples, Altagracia, and it's amazing all the things that you've been able to contribute to. And so saying that, going back to being to try to improve some different methodology or try to do some changes. Being a woman, have you ever had problems of being heard? Or have you ever been not really heard because of your gender? Or have you ever had such problems?
So I think I'm very loud, so it's hard not to hear. It's hard not to listen. But I've always said that first of all, I recognize my privilege. No, I come from a very established, very prestigious family in Mexico, and that has opened a lot of doors for me.
Mhm.
No, I think that especially in the beginning, no, I'm 31 years old now, but I've been chair of this company since I think 24, 23 years old, and I've been in very high positions in the company since I was studying law school and whatnot. No, so I think when people open the door, because they open it certainly because of the company I represent and because of the family I represent and whatnot. Many people should be surprised, no? Because I also I'm a very feminine, I'm a very girly girl, no? So I'm always wearing pink, and it almost looks like I'm carrying a dog, no? So I do think that people don't expect again a woman that represents tortillas or that represents public transportation to look like I look or to speak like I speak. But I've always thought that what people think of you when they meet you is up to them and their expectations. Mm-hmm. But what people think of you when you leave that meeting, I think it's up to you. And I do believe that you can change the way that people think. Mm-hmm. And I think that even if I got the door open because of circumstance or context, I think I keep those doors open with knowledge and with added value and with capability to propose things and solve problems or whatnot. So I don't believe I've been unheard because I'm a woman. Mm-hmm. I believe I've surprised people because I'm a woman. I do believe that. And I believe maybe I've been when people expect less, no? Mm-hmm. But I think that's more in your favor. No, when you can surprise people positively, that's a more lasting impression than when people expect you to be surprising. No, and so I think that again, Mexico and in many countries that are joining us in this conference is still a developing country. We have a society, especially in the southern parts of Mexico and in diverse communities and rural areas and whatnot. Where women face many challenges, especially personal security and personal safety. I think I'm not a face of a victim, no, and so I can't hold that. I think I'm a face of, and I always say this. I want the next Me Too movement to be of I can Me Too. I can run a company. I can also decide. I can also preside over things. And I think that the women that are already in leadership positions should really push for that to be the next movement, no? Of course, to eradicate all types of violence of women in work and in families, but also to be on the front lines of the next girls. They can be a leader, no?
And yes, thank you for that. And also going back to what you just said, that in Mexico, especially, not in every part of the country, the situation is the same for women. And as I told you before, I'm from Italy. Also in Italy, there are a lot of kind of these problems, kind of like machismo. And have you observed any change in your country and in your work in terms of better situation, better inclusion for women or for other underrepresented groups, or probably not at all?
So I would say yes and no. Mm-hmm. No, and why yes and no? I think if you look at hardcore statistics, the answer would be no. Mm-hmm. No, again. Less than 10% of women in the stock exchange are sit on a board, no, and those who sit on a board are on family businesses. Mm-hmm. There's less than 5% that chair them, and again, and you look at the sectors, and not only is it a hard no, but the estimation is that it'll take, some say 87 years to get to true equality in businesses for men and women, and some say 130 years, no, depending on who you believe. So that's the no part. But I also say the estimations for people to get vaccinated in Mexico was 100 years, and we got vaccinated in 8 months. No, so estimations and forward-looking statements can change when there's an unpredictable force, and that force needs to be willpower. No, and I do think that we can get there a lot faster. What do we see that is telling us we're going in the right direction? No, first of all, there's an organized movement, a feminist movement in Mexico, and we have gained important battles. No, we have made at a constitutional level and at a legal level that there can be no man that has created violence representing the government in any popular mandate. There has been huge advances that we can't overlook. No, I think there are more girls that are becoming an inspiration. No, we have the first astronaut, Mexican astronaut, which was a girl, not a boy. We're creating, I think, slowly but surely, role models for girls. I was talking at the Senate last week, and they told me, "Did you know that 95% of girls can't name a girl a woman they admire, and they can't name a man? No, when you say who's the best businesswoman in Mexico, they can't name her, but they can name a man. No, they can say Carlos Slim, or they can say and so there are narratives that need to be changed, and there are narratives that need to be pushed. But again, I believe that in a country where 90% of companies are family-owned, the only way to change companies is to change families and how they're run. And so it's gonna take time because it's a social and a cultural thing that needs to happen. But I think we're getting there.
Yeah, you're completely right. There are a lot of things to be changed, starting from the family. I completely agree with that. And since you're saying that a lot of women are not able to name a person that is their inspiration, who is your inspiration, or do you have someone who inspired you during your career?
Well, I have many. I've been lucky enough. My name is Altagracia because of my grandmother. Mm-hmm. So my grandfather died very young at 40, and she was left with seven sons and daughters, and one on the way. And she's truly a great fighter, a great example of personal and of collective separation. No. But I've also had many hands. My absolute mentor was my father. He took me in when I was very, very young, at 13. And I started with him, and I continued to work side by side with him, and it's my greatest pride and joy. And I always say I started standing in the shoulders of a giant. But I've met extremely helpful women, Gina Diaz Barroso, which I don't know if you know, Laura, her sister, and there's women in business that are smaller than ours, but that are having huge impacts, not only for the community, but for other women that should also be recognized. Sofía Pérez Gasque, which is president of the Consejo Coordinador de Mujeres Empresarias, coordinative advisory board of women in business. And I think there's great example in Mexico, in the world. Jane Fraser, which is a great friend of mine. She's the first women chair of an international bank. And we've had not only friendships that grow, but also business relationships that grow, and mentorships that have grown. Again, I'm very, very young, so most of the women that have established or consolidated trajectories or careers in business, are double my age, at least. So it's been a great opportunity to learn from the very, very best.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Now I will ask you one last question, because I think I have to leave the floor open for other questions. So saying that you had a lot of mentors and a lot of mentorship, have you observed that maybe growing in your career, something changed? So maybe you didn't get all the support that maybe you were getting at the beginning of your career, or have you observed any change of the behavior that your colleagues had towards you while growing? Or
So, being in the companies that I represent, and I'm very honored to represent, it's a very slippery slope. Okay. Because we deal with politics and we live with social happenings. No, so if the price of the corn goes down because international price of corn went down 40%, and there's an issue in the state, Sinaloa, which is a state that produces 6 million tons of corn a year or whatnot, you're somehow in the news. No, or if there's inflation, you're somehow in the news, meeting with the president, and so on and so forth. No, so it's a very interesting relationship that we have with government, where we definitely talk to them and establish public policy with them. No, for again, sectors that are strategic in Mexican business. But it is also you have your own interest, no? So it's hard to not impose interest on public policy, no? So I think that is a very delicate balance that that I'm honored to be on that tightrope. But that is definitely very. It is not hard, but it's a challenge, no? Because for government decisions, there's always someone that fervently agrees and someone that incredibly opposes. No, and the fact that they see you with them a lot, sometimes bankers don't love it, or other colleagues, if they don't like that government specifically, won't like that you're aiding. No, but we believe that the only way, again, to create value for the community and not only for the company is to be there and to be in public policy. So it's something we tread lightly on, but we do all the time, not only for corn or tortilla or whatnot, but for finance, for the bonded warehouses, for different things, for public transportation and whatnot. And so I don't believe that attitude has changed. No, when every government changes, well, people agree or disagree depending. No, but we believe that we've done a great job in maintaining independence and autonomy from each and every government, for maintaining an integrity position and stance in each of the public discussions that may happen from time to time. But that we also maintain a firm conviction that we need to continue dialogue, no? In spite of any phobia that people may have for a specific political party or whatnot. We are adamant in maintaining dialogue with people we agree on and with people we don't agree on.
Thank you so much, Altagracia. It was really a pleasure to interview you. And now I will leave the floor to Isabel, who will ask you some more questions from.
All right.
Thank you so much again.
Thank you. We are grateful for your stimulating discussion and contributions. And we appreciate Itria and Altagracia for this very interesting conversation. Now we would like to open the floor for an open Q&A session. We are attending your questions in the Slido application. You can see on the screen the QR. You can scan it. Also, it is available in the chat box. Also, you can write down your questions in the chat box, and we invite you to raise your hand using the reactions button at the Zoom menu to allow you to open your microphone and video to make your question. Right now, we have Georgina, so please, would you please open your micro and your camera? Thank you.
Hello, good morning. Thank you, Altagracia. I really have a lot of questions for you. I would like to take advantage, but I am choosing just one and give an opportunity for our the rest of our colleagues. Just to, I would like to listen some examples that maybe you promote inside the industry, because as you say, inclusion is very important. So I would like that maybe you can share some examples that inside of the industry could be possible, this inclusion, not only, well, first of all, for the women, sorry, but also maybe other groups. No? Thank you.
Okay. So I'll answer, right? Gracias, Joaquina. So I believe I'll give you the most important example that is not for women, no, but it's for everyone, but it would benefit women the most. And it's financial inclusion. So when you look at the sectors in which I participate, you'll clearly see, and more if you're from Mexico, you'd be very familiar with it. We have 55% of our economy that is informal, right? So we, of course, don't pay taxes, but we also don't have access to Social Security and whatnot. And as you know, women are the ones that benefit the most from this Social Security and other types of security that I'll mention right now. So the easiest way to transition into a formal society or a formal economy is to give access to equity or to financial options, to a credit at good conditions. And what we've done is in Almer, we like to say that we get to where banks don't want to and can't. And what we mean by that is we established a different way of giving finance to small, medium, and large farmers or producers in Mexico. And what we did there was these are people that don't have fixed assets to get a mortgage or to get access to credit, no, but they do have their harvest, and that harvest is worth something. Most of the harvest is a commodity, whether it's a berry, whether it's honey, whether it's a nut, whether it's shrimp, whether it's of course wheat or corn and whatnot. And what we do is we take that corn or we take that wheat and we pledge that corn or that wheat, and that has established the most successful way to integrate small and medium producers or farmers into the formal economy, giving them access to cheap, or not cheap, but a reasonable structure of credit, so they can have, so they can withstand the long cycle that mostly happens in the agribusiness, without all of your working capital that is committed there. So you can monetize or pocket the money of your working capital. And that has really transformed communities where we've been. We started that project actually getting a special permission to do that from BID, from the Inter-American Development Day in 2000. And it has grown right now, and I'll say the number in Spanish. In Mexico, there's an emission of 100,000 million, which is 180 billion Mexican pesos of this bonded warehouse deposits. And of that, 135,000 million in Spanish, or 135 billion pesos, come from Almer, which is one of our companies. Another way to do it is, I think there's three pillars to transform the sectors, and it's mobility, urban mobility. Women can spare 2 to 4 hours in a bus to come to and from work, and then be expected to take their children to the doctor and to a play date and to innovate, no, and to start thinking about a startup they want to start and whatnot. So that's a problem that can be changed in 6 years. We've been promoters of integral solutions for mobility in most of the cities in Mexico, and that's something that's slowly but surely changing. The second is mobility from rural areas to the cities, what we call geographic mobility, that is from rural areas to the cities, and immigration from south to north. That is a phenomenon that is taking place in all of the world, from Africa to Europe, from Latin America to the United States and whatnot. And both immigrant women and women that move from the countryside to cities are exposed to different sorts of violence at a heightened probability. And we need to find a way to treat them and to give them back some dignity into their lives. No, and what we've done is we've done different agreements with the Ministry of Government, the Secretaría de Gobernación, so we can hire immigrants, especially in plants that are close to frontiers. And so this is a way to keep immigrants legally in Mexico, so they have access to most of the things, public services and whatnot, but also to eliminate rotation in your companies, because the visa of the immigrants is given while they're working for you, or if they have another employer while they're working for the other employer. So that's a way to help the immigrants, but also to help you keep your rotation levels lower, because if you hire immigrants without this agreement with the government, so they have a legal say, they'll be there 30 days and then they'll move on to the board, to cross the border. So this is a way to help build communities. And the most important is social mobility. People are not so much frustrated that they're born poor, but they're very frustrated that education and their jobs are failing them, and that the way they are born determines how they die. And that's what we need to focus on. That's why we focus on young people. Right now in Mexico, 80% of people that work in the fields are over 45 to 50 years old. So we need to find a way to make it attractive. And the way to make it sexy, attractive, inclusive is the use of technology and the alliances we can create, big companies, small communities, and government. And that's a way in which I think we can include many different people. The other way is to invest in security. And when I say security, it's personal security, it's public security, it's rule of law, or what we say legal security, and of course, social security. There can't be an advancement in women in work without investing in social security. And the way to invest in social security is to formalize the economy. So I hope the question is kind of answered.
Yeah, thank you, Altagracia. Sure.
Thank you so much, Altagracia. Very interesting and stimulating reflections. Now we are going to read one question in the Slido application. Do you have any advice on how to be yourself, as you said, loud and girly, in an environment like a science and tech environment? Do you have any tricks for the mind that you use?
Well, the easiest and the hardest is confidence, right? I think that you need to trust that what you bring to the table is larger than what you're taking from the table. And when you know that for certain, and if you don't know it, when you work to achieve that, I think you can be yourself. We now see the fashion in startuppers, where they're wearing jeans and a plain t-shirt. And we see in banks suits and a tie that's choking them. And I think you can be your own role model. At the end of the day, do what makes you comfortable. For me, I'm very comfortable in pink, or I'm very comfortable in pastel colors or in bright colors. And that's what I've chosen to wear to banks and to government meetings and to the office, frankly. I think that society is slowly becoming less judgmental, whether it's the tattoos or pink hair or whatnot. And I think you should use that to your advantage, But just remember that the only way to express your creativity is not through fashion or through bold choices in your appearance. No, the way that adds value is to be critical and creative thinkers. And to be critical and creative thinkers, it doesn't matter if you're wearing black, if you're comfortable wearing a hijab, or you're comfortable wearing a cross. The only thing that matters is what solution you bring to the table. And if you bring that solution to the table, wherever you live, no? Be respectful to the environment. I think to the context you're in, be very, very mindful and very respectful. Don't make people uncomfortable, but don't make yourself uncomfortable. So I don't think that's an actual tip, but I think people should wear what they want to wear. And again, what people think of you when they meet you, that's up to them. But what they think of you after you've talked or after you've spoken what you have to say, I think it's in very great measure up to you. And be prepared to surprise people.
Thank you so much. Now we have Noemi Valencia. Would you like to do a quick question, Noemi? Thank you. You can open your micro and your camera. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Altagracia, for your presentation. It's very motivating for the women. So I want to ask, as a mentor, what would you tell women about leadership and professional growth?
So I think it greatly varies. No, it is very hard to give a general advice because again, to give advice, you need to know context, and you need to know the external context, and specifically the women that is asking you, what can you do for her in that specific instance? But in general terms, I would say, again, and I think I said it in the conference, no, but lean into your job responsibility as much as you can in these times of crisis. No, as you lean into those responsibilities, there is more of a chance of recognition or resurgence of new leadership. And specialization skills, again, will be extremely valued in the next 2 to 5 years. But I will also say, in order to advance your career or advance really anything in life, you need to know where you're going, no? And I started my conference by saying, the reason I'm the chair is because I was able to align the vision with the ambition of the companies. No, and I understood the core values and the principles and really the goals, not only again the short term or the middle term goals, but our legacy. And what I would always say, what I'll say to you and to women listening is, keep in mind your legacy. What do you want to leave at the end of the day? And are you working towards it? No, because when you have your goal very clear, then there's 2 or 3 paths, or there will be many different ways you can get to your goal. And the way to get to your goal is obviously being again conserving your integrity and being faithful to your principles and your values. But the way I see it, when you have a clear goal, it makes your life easier. So I'm a big fan. People say that no, you can't plan for 5 or 10 years. You don't know where life is going to take you. You don't know where life is going to take you, but you do know what you want to do with your life. So work towards that. No, in spite of what the world looks like. And if you, at the end of the day, if you want to change your plan, you can always change your plan. Or you want to change your goal, you can always change your goal. But I do think it's very important to work with long-term goals, to think in terms of legacy, and again, to think about community. No, in Spanish we have a saying, and I'll say it in Spanish and then I'll repeat it in English. No, cuando pienses en más piensa en los demás. When you think of more, think of everybody else. And if you do that, I think you'll find yourself, one, with important connections that will help you in times where things are good, but also will help you in times where things are not going that great. And two, you'll work on your leadership skills, no? Because the only way to become a leader is by working towards it, no? Or by having leadership attitudes. And you can't be a leader of yourself, no? Leadership is always intertwined with community and with teamwork. And so I think if we learn to create teams and work as a team, I think it's the biggest leap jump a women can have to advance their career. And again, don't forget legacy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this reflection and stimulating presentation. Grand talk. Thank you, Nami. Now I would like to invite Brian Gómez, Director General of CIMI, to officially close the event. Dr. Gómez, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Altagracia. And wow, an hour already has passed by. Thanks to our 200 participants. This was a very inspiring presentation and seminar. And I remember, if I take home one message, it is we for sure don't have 86 to 150 years to wait before equality is there. But you were very clear, those predictions can be disrupted if there is a force of change. So I would invite everybody to be that force of change, a force of change that is disruptive, but not destructive. Thanks a lot once again, Altagracia, and I invite everybody to our next seminar. Coming up next is the following: great leader and catalyst of change.
For 22 years now, I've been committed to creating the proper policies and programs in order to facilitate opportunities for girls and for women to be able to grow and to be able to support their families. In my lifetime, I've gone from, being the only woman in almost every room to being one of many. And there's a substantial difference in the character of the conversation when there's a critical mass of women. It doesn't have to be half, but it's got to be more than one or two. And then it's a different, more rich conversation, no matter what the topic. In that context, of course, if we're going to set up systems where we might be able to listen to women, then we're creating in some cases, some sort of informal network to hear women's voices and therefore have women in leadership roles, even if those leadership roles are just on the basis of communicating with the people bringing aid. Those leadership roles are critical in order to help rebuild the communities, because they are the women who are going to be not only there during the fighting, but also there afterwards to try to rebuild.
Please join our next seminar in the Catalyst of Change series on August 15th.